Hello folks, and welcome to Jack Review's musical Spooky Edition, though really all I'm doing is just wearing dark clothes and changing my lighting setup. There's really all there is to it. But in my mission to review all of the musical theater productions that I go out to see in my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, I thought it would be more than appropriate to use this setup to talk about Stray Dog Theater's production of Nevermore, the imaginary life and mysterious death of Edgar Allan Poe, which played at Tower Grove Abbey from October 10th through November 2nd of 2024. Stray Dog Theater has produced Nevermore for their Halloween-themed offering, which they are no stranger to in doing during the month of October, and neither are other theater companies in the St. Louis area. But this is actually the first time that any professional theater company that I am aware of has ever done Nevermore. So for those of you who don't know what it is, Nevermore is a symphonic rock opera that was created entirely by one person. The music, lyrics, and book were all written by Jonathan Christenson, who is the artistic director of the Catalyst Theater, which is an avant-garde experimental theater company based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. He is still the artistic director to this day, and he debuted Nevermore in 2009 in a production that he directed, and it became a monster hit for Catalyst, so much so that it played in festivals in London and New York. It got a very limited engagement off-Broadway production at New World Stages. That was in 2015 when that happened, and it eventually became available for licensing for other theater companies to do it, including Stray Dog Theater. Shortly after the New World Stages production in 2015, they did get a cast recording of the show produced, which I am going to leave a link to in the description below so that you can listen to it as well. Now, despite the presence that Nevermore has online, it is a very rarely produced show, and those that see it really love it, like to the point that it's gotten a bit of a cult following. And after finally getting the chance to see it, I think I can narrow down the reasons for that cult following to two reasons. One, the concept. Nevermore marks the first time ever that anyone has attempted to dramatize in this way the life of Edgar Allan Poe, literally from birth to death. Edgar Allan Poe, of course, being one of the first mainstream American horror authors, and definitely one of the most enduring authors in American literature in general. But reason number two is, I think, is because of the way the show is structured. The manner in which the plot reveals itself to us, and how I think the plot revealed insights into Edgar Allan Poe's work that I personally have never really considered up to this point. Going into the show, I wasn't really a huge Poe fan. I only read a few of his stories in school. So watching Nevermore was a very educational experience for me, and it was executed in a way that was actually quite brilliant. So the show starts near the end of Edgar Allan Poe's life in October of 1849, when he was 40 years old. The first time that we see him, he's standing in the rain on a cold night outside of a train station in Richmond, Virginia. And from the train, he is recognized by the El Dorado Players. These are a group of 6 traveling actors who all invite Poe into their cabin, where they give him fresh clothes and some warmth. Poe tells the El Dorado Players that he is making a round trip from Richmond to New York and then back again. In New York, he is going to accept a position as the editor-in-chief for a publishing company. And once he gets back to Richmond, he is going to finally marry his childhood sweetheart, Elmira Royster. And in turn, the El Dorado Players tell Poe that they were inspired to form their troupe by watching a performance of Poe's mother, Eliza, who is a renowned actress in the theater scene of Poe's hometown of Boston, Massachusetts. Once they break up his mother, Poe goes down a spiral, remembering all of the events in his life that led up to this moment. And so, with his permission, the players all reenact Poe's life, helping Poe to make sense of his career from birth up to the present moment. Poe plays himself, and the other 6 actors play all of the other people in Poe's very short, very miserable, very melancholic life. Edgar Allan Poe led an existence that handed him nothing but misfortunes. The most important people in his life would always succumb to debts and disease, to alcoholism, madness, victimized by tuberculosis, which was pervasive in the early to mid 1800s. He was also severely lacking in a positive male authority figure in his life, often being abused and taken advantage of by men, to the point that Poe too would end up just like them, swallowed up by alcoholism and incurring debts. Poe had hardly anything handed to him, except for a quill, some ink, and a notebook. And so, with nothing else to support him, he became a writer. And because of how hard his life was, he proved himself to be a genius with the pen. Poe found that he was particularly good at writing horror stories, mysteries, subjects that pertained to the macabre and the haunting. Poe was lucky enough to have his work published in popular serials, and his writings instantly became classics. Right out the gate, Poe was praised for his mastery of short-form fiction. And within the horror genre, he became the first of his kind, an author who was a cult of personality. But upon further retrospect, I think too that Poe was one of the first mainstream authors that were unafraid to tackle the inward horrors of American life. Things like disease, alcoholism, madness, things that were taboo to speak of at the time. But they were universal demons that people in Poe's life and Poe himself had to fight. And all of us have to fight to this day. Poe's writings really are universal and timeless, which is what makes it maddening that at the end of his life, we have absolutely no idea what happened to him. A few days before his death, Poe was found delirious and distressed and incoherent on the streets of Baltimore, Maryland, in clothes that were not his own. He was admitted into Washington Medical College, and on October 7th, 1849, he died at the age of 40, under a cause that to this day is still a mystery. Now, Nevermore, the musical, does try to justify the circumstances that surround his death. A group of traveling players that give him new clothes and all that. But once we do catch up to the present moment, after we are sent on this just wild journey through Poe's life, towards the end of the show, we get a twist ending that I will not dare spoil for you, but it completely puts the rest of the 2 hours we've been watching into perspective. And it was executed in a way that really blew my mind. Because until the ending hit, Nevermore to me was just a really impressive spectacle, which I will talk about more when I get to Stray Dog's production choices. But when it came to the ending, the last 10 to 15 minutes of the show, Nevermore very suddenly, to me, became one of the most artistically interesting pieces of musical theater to have come out from the 2000s, the decade. And with that said, I find it very strange that Nevermore is as underrated as it is because of the level of depth that is there in the material. Like, I seriously implore you to listen to the cast recording if you want to know what I am talking about. It really is that effective. Like, I truly think Nevermore is a brilliant musical. Jonathan Christenson composed Nevermore in the style of operatic recitative, accompanied by a symphonic rock score, which was written to be performed like poetry. It gives the proceedings a very pulsating, very repetitive quality, alternating between driving rock melodies to swirling waltzes. And it really does feel like a whirlwind, that you're just getting swept in for 2 hours, with the fast pace, with the percussiveness of the score, and with the cast weaving in and out of multiple roles like mad. But what makes it really interesting is that Christensen took a lot of artistic liberties. He blurs the line between fact and fiction, leaving the audience to guess which is which, making it an unreliable narrative, something that is emphasized even further by the ending. And even then, the show is not all misery either. Despite how hard Edgar Allan Poe's life was, Nevermore really does take the time to show signs of hope in his life, his yearnings, his loves, his successes. The show is a roller coaster that dips between the highest highs of serenity and tenderness all the way down to the lowest lows of terror and genuine despair. And it's this roller coaster that keeps you emotionally invested, that lets you care about Poe and see the tragedy for what it is. And I think it's this respect to honoring every facet of Edgar Allan Poe's life that if he were alive today, I think he would have loved to see this. Not to mention, Jonathan Christenson puts so many references to Poe's writings into this material. Poe's most famous story, The Raven, is given its own song. It's literally operatic recitative of the story, set to symphonic rock music. One of Poe's stories, Israfel, is the title of the song in the show, where Poe, as a young boy, discovers his passion for writing, which is a truly beautiful song. There's a character in the show that serves as Poe's inspiration for The Telltale Heart. Poe has a nightmare that inspires The Pit and the Pendulum. Poe is told a ghost story that inspires the premature burial. Poe witnesses an important character having a psychotic episode that inspires the imp of the perverse. And there are even visual references that evoke stories like the Black Cat and the Cask of Amontillado. And the sheer number of references do not feel jarring at all. They are all in service of exploring Poe's legacy, of how his misfortunes, his inner demons, informed his work, and how revolutionary it truly was for Poe to write so frankly about the universal horrors of the human experience in ways that were so profound and honest. But I don't think I would have enjoyed this show as much as I had if it weren't for Stray Dog Theater's production of it. Let's be honest here. Only a theater company that is as fearless and as lacking in shame as Stray Dog could have pulled off a show like this. Even just walking into Tower Grove Abbey was an atmospheric marvel. Director Justin Bean designed the set, the sound, and the visual effects to be completely drenched in the American Gothic aesthetic. Tower Grove Abbey is completely shrouded in stage haze. There's candlelight. The theater is draped in black lace, red velvet adorned with flowers. There's skulls. There's the red eyes of a raven that pierce the audience's heads. And there's even a quill on stage that appears to be floating in midair. On the Tower Grove Abbey stage, Justin Bean designed a multi-level unit set. The lower level of the set utilizes a roving door ramp combo, a moving chair, a moving staircase, trunks from the Eldorado players that are stacked to switch between locations and reveal costumes and comical stage props. There's oversized teacups, oversized playing cards, oversized liquor bottles. It's very vaudevillian, a vibe that is emphasized further by the second level, which is a literal stage with parting curtains. And there are quite a few visually intricate sequences that play out on this second level. There's real water that rains on Edgar at the start of the show, underscoring the intro scene with real rain sounds. There's shadow puppetry, there's pantomime, and other truly brilliant moments of stagecraft. And there's some other fun prop work too. Under the second level stage is a bed that gets rolled out onto the lower level. There's a marionette representing the Imp of the Perverse. And in the scene where we see Poe's college years, there is a small stack of 2 books that, when placed on his desk, get clicked open and reveal themselves to be an entire stack of like 6 to 8 books. That was really a hilarious reveal. The lighting design by Tyler Dino is by far the best he has ever done. Even the transitions into each act was genius. For the first act, for the intro, when the lights gradually turn off with the blasts of a bass drum. The second act, the transition out of intermission, is a jump scare. The lights shutting off with a loud thunderclap. It really kept the audience on their toes and scared the living daylights out of them. There are even a few striking moments where the cast are put in really stark lighting, like when we meet Poe's mother Eliza, and when we are confronted by this nightmarish vision of the Raven. The shadow puppetry was executed brilliantly. The Raven musical sequence was captivating, with the poisonous purple and green lights giving rock concert vibes. The nightmare that inspired the Telltale Heart included a vision of a character wearing an eye patch that shines a bright blue light into Edgar's face that looked really scary. And the lights, which they too were drowning in the stage haze, was gothic to the core in a way that really allowed you to soak in all of that atmosphere. And the actors were also dressed in 1800s gothic attire that was designed by Sarah Jean Dowling. The costumes utilized a color scheme of black and white, with accents of deep reds and golds and royal purples. And much of the pieces were tailored with filigree on curlicue on trim, executed with elegant detail that was well constructed, gorgeous to look at, and made complete by the actors wearing white pancake makeup on their faces that sold the gothic vaudeville horror show aesthetic. There's even brilliant uses of masks throughout the production, from the various ghost stories to the nightmarish human-sized raven. They were all just impressively grotesque. Director Justin Bean collaborated with sound designer Wade Staples to create a soundscape that is by far the tightest that I have seen at Stray Dog Theater. Now, the production was required to use pre-recorded instrumental tracks produced by Matthew Skopik. Now, pre-recorded music is something that I personally take issue with in live musical theater, mainly because that's just my personal preference. But the integration of the instrumental tracks into the soundscape was seamless. They blended perfectly in with the already established sound effects. They make the proceedings feel genuinely ominous with the thunderclaps, the monstrous rumblings, and a whole other host of sounds that keep the audience on edge. Justin Bean's directing here was very tightly coordinated. Every moment of stagecraft was precisely controlled, creating wondrous stage tableaus. Bean's blocking makes the actors switching between all of their characters feel effortless, with the fast pace driving from them every ounce of emotion that they have into this. Justin Bean collaborated with dramaturge Sarah Jane Clarke to infuse additional insight from Poe's work into the production. Also, choreographer Maggie Nold to create movements that make the actors feel like dancers from an old, worn music box, at turns hauntingly smooth and other points herky-jerky and very unusual. And finally, we have musical director Jennifer Buckheit, who crafted a vocal style for the cast that perfectly mixes together symphony, opera, and rock. Stray Dog Theater's 7-actor ensemble was exceedingly excellent, crafting strong, committed performances that masters Nevermore's inherent theatricality and sense of melodrama. Poe himself was played by Drew Mazzell, who gave an impassioned performance, completely inhabiting every stage of Poe's life, from the boyishness and childlike fear of young Poe to the desperation and depression of teen Poe, all the way to the passion and the drive of adult Poe. Mazzell masters it all and never misses a beat, even down to his vocal range, starting the show in a very youthful, higher register and ending with a deeper, more comfortable range. The notes are hit masterfully, which is really important for a character like Poe, who is on stage for pretty much all of the show. And the other 6 members of the cast don't miss a beat either. All of them have to play upwards of 40 characters in 2 hours, which makes them feel increasingly inescapable, which, if you've seen the ending, you'll understand. All of these actors gave layered, complicated performances that are delivered with a versatility that was quite compelling to watch. Stephen Henley gives a relentlessly optimistic, adventurous portrayal of Poe's older brother, Henry. Dawn Schmid plays 3 important roles. First is Poe's cute as a button younger sister, Rosalie. Second is Poe's kind but deeply disturbed foster mother, Fanny Allan. And the third is Poe's child bride, his first cousin, Virginia Clem. Heather Feel has a stunning legit soprano as Eliza Poe. Kevin O'Brien is properly menacing as Poe's cruel, overbearing foster father, Jock Allan. Michael Cox is properly slimy and creepy as Poe's flamboyant publisher, Rufus Griswold. And Sarah Ray Womack as Elmira Royster is Poe's perfect match, making her love for all things scary oddly wholesome, kind of like Wednesday Addams but way more sappy. Now, if you can't tell from how much I've been gushing all over this, Nevermore has pretty much become one of my new favorite musicals. And I think it's because I am very much a sucker for shows like Nevermore, where I went into it with kind of low expectations, where I was expecting it to be one thing, and in particularly one thing that I wasn't going to really care for. And by the end of it, it really turned me around, and it became something that I legitimately loved from beginning to end, which is the reason why Waitress worked for me so well. Nevermore gave me a new appreciation for Edgar Allan Poe's work that I did not have before, and it really does compel me to read his stories now. Maybe I'll make another spin-off series with this show like I did for Waitress, only time will tell. Now, at this point in Stray Dog Theater's 2024 season, they have produced musicals that were basically quirky for quirky's sake. Xanadu, Ruthless, but Nevermore was top-notch. Easily one of the best productions that I have ever seen from them in my 2 to 3 years of seeing their shows regularly. Nevermore, The Imaginary Life and Mysterious Death of Edgar Allan Poe, is an immersive, haunting, visually stunning, educational, poignant, and thoroughly entertaining piece of musical theater. One of the best that I have been lucky enough to see this year. And I really do hope that it is not the last that we see of this show in St. Louis. But did you see Stray Dog Theater's production of Nevermore? If so, what did you think about it? And question of the day, what is your personal favorite Edgar Allan Poe story? Because from what I have seen, everybody has a different favorite. Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And while you're at it, be sure to head on over to jackreviewsmusicals.com to check out my back catalog of written reviews. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more St. Louis musical theater reviews coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and quoth the raven, long live the musical.